My lords, we have identified a sealed container on a recently surveyed tomb world, buried many kilometers deep into the planet's crust. The container held within it records, detailing the history of a long-dead empire who refer to themselves as the Eldar. They appear to have made a pact with a being of the void that they refer to as the Worm. Their account is broken into several different events, starting with an initial contact signal and ending with the release of this worm entity. I shall recite their logs for you, my lords. First contact. An alert communications officer has identified what appears to be a faint signal. Almost lost in the gamma ray flashes from the black hole, they're faint, but unmistakably artificial. This raises intriguing possibilities for our scientists. Science Officer Jane Zar reports that the signal was unexpectedly easy to decipher, but the team has spent considerable time confirming that it was not a hoax. It is a repeating half-coherent message in the Eldar language, something similar to a poem. It repeats the phrase, "Gravity is desire, and time is sight." It encodes coordinates near the black hole, and it ends with a dedication by name to Jane Zar, who adds dispassionately that they have confirmed that the signal has been radiating into interstellar space before her birth. The signal may predate our entire civilization. Jane Zar and her ship have been dispatched to the black hole system, designated Kalor, with immediate effect. As the science vessel Banshee approached the coordinates specified by the signal, it began to report spatial distortions and curious lensing effects, a rich stream of valuable data. Then the transmission became distorted. What happened next has been analysed exhaustively. The excitement in Science Officer Jane Zar's voice turns to fear as the ship's hull struggles under increasingly exotic conditions. The ship triggers a distress call. Jane Zar cries out, "The worm." Then all transmissions end. No trace of the Banshee is ever found. No further transmissions, no debris, and the space at those coordinates is innocuous and utterly free of distortion. But the data they sent back has advanced our physics research dramatically. Perhaps it was worth their lives. The black hole in the Kalor system is active again. Once again, a looping signal flickers in the darkness at the edge of normal space, but this time there's an acoustic message encoded in the signal. It sounds very much like Jane Zar's voice. What was shall be. What shall be was. Then, at the same coordinates as the first signal, the coordinates where Jane Zar was lost, what the media has now christened the exit point. Finally, the message utters a name. Baroth. Baroth is our leading physics researcher, who volunteers to go and investigate the signal. He knew Jane Zar well and hopes to get her back. This time, the ship is running fully automated. Baroth is the only crew member aboard. As the ship approaches the exit point, the telemetry stream fills up with fascinating data. Once again, space flexes, gravity uncoils. Baroth begins to read the headline data, echoing the telemetry. He is commendably calm. It's clear we've sent a professional. It takes a little while for anyone to realize that something is peculiar about the timing. Baroth is no longer echoing the data. He is predicting it. The telemetry disagrees, but only for a few seconds until it catches up. The monitoring team is just reporting that the prediction interval is increasing, when Baroth says wonderingly, "I'm through." "It's dark," he adds. "That's not a problem. We can live in the dark. I never thought of that. But of course, we can live here forever. If only the worm will wait." At that moment, the signal cut out and the ship disappeared from our team's sensors. We've reproduced conditions that approximate those around the black hole. We found that the fragments we recover cycle between states in ways that should be impossible, as if time were oscillating. We can derive energy from this, although there are worrying changes to the local spacetime. Once again, the horizon signal in Kalor has become active. This time, it appears to have upped its game. Once again, the transmission includes the exit point's coordinates. It's also signed with the private comm keys of both Jane Zar and Baroth. It's a generative text program written in an Eldar programming language that creates what appears to be love poems. Love poems directed to Mughal Ra, ahead of engineering. They're honestly not very good love poems, but it is, our scientists agree, quite difficult to generate love poems procedurally, and quite unusual for a black hole to send love poems at all. Mugen Ra, although fully aware of the fate of the previous two vessels, volunteered to go. "This will be the end of me," Mugen Ra says at the briefing before launch. "I know I won't come back, but I think I always knew this would happen. Whatever is in the hole has been waiting for us for a long, long time. I think it's been waiting for me before I was born." Once again, the single pilot ship approaches the exit point. Once again, space boils like a fever. Again, our sensor arrays soak up fascinating data. This time, Mugen Ra is silent. The telemetry becomes intermittent, and then it too falls silent. The ship has reached the exit point. The conditions around it are returning to normal. Nothing has happened. "Nothing?" the monitoring team mutter furiously. The ship is different. In fact, it's a different ship. It's Jane Zha's vessel, lost these years past, drifting now away from the exit point. A salvage team finds it pristine and empty. No trace of crew and no signs of violence, but there's a journal entry in Jane Zha's name titled, "What was, will be." Our scientists review it nervously. "Impossible," one says. "I hope so," says another. We have renamed the ship the Foundling and returned it to service. The signal, dead or sleeping, says nothing at all, ever again. A small group of scientists are beginning to research what they refer to as Omega Theory. We are unsure how this will progress. Forgotten Temple, Illidan. Archaeologists have found a forgotten temple in the remote highlands of Illidan, buried for centuries, but recently exposed by an earthquake. Dating techniques suggest it's a pre-industrial relic, hand-hewn from volcanic rock. However, the recurring symbol on the walls and radial altar, a Mobius loop serpent consuming its own tail, has no obvious precedent in our early history, and the inscriptions use an unknown alphabet. One excitable archaeologist suggests it's a relic left by an unknown precursor race. In a presumably meaningless coincidence, the quake seems to have occurred at the same time as the final message from the black hole in the Kalor system. Our scientists have learned a great deal about the subterranean temple, but some questions remain. A roof aperture along the radial altar suggests it was once a solar calendar, but it's so badly damaged by the earthquake we can't be certain. If the builders found particular dates important, we'll never know which ones. We've had better luck with the unknown alphabet. It's a debased variant of a better known hierarchical script, not alien language at all, and we've successfully deciphered it. The temple is dedicated to the waiting worm, or the worm in waiting. Most of the inscriptions are sonorous, poetic invocations requesting its appearance, or, if read in the other direction, its departure. There is also a body of inscriptions described as the operations of the universe, which our more excitable archaeologists swear contains reference to an advanced field of equations. Nothing new to us, but very impressive for a temple of this vintage. We have yet to find a physicist who's prepared to go on record as agreeing that the references are meaningful, however. The temple holds no cosmetic secrets or alien weapons as far as we can tell, but its dark spaces have a distinctive, menacing beauty, and the poetry of the invocations of the worm in waiting become fashionable. Media outlets are already playing them set to modern music, and they have become remarkably popular. The escape pod. The science vessel Foundling, the one that returned to us from the void, has located a small, minimally powered artificial object, broadcasting a looping signal at local range only. These sorts of things usually turn out to be escape pods, and this looks like one of those. It's been out there a very long time. When the crew cracks it open, carefully observing quarantine procedures, they find ancient remains preserved by the sterile pod environment. So far, not unusual. The captain of the Foundling indicates, however, that they did not expect to find the Eldar words "what was, will be." What will be was, daubed on the wall in the bodily fluids of the pod's occupant, who the crew are now wryly referring to as the Messenger. They add that there are some equally unexpected atomical similarities between the Messenger species and our own. We've established that the escape pod was the kind of commercially available knockoff common in the previous phases of the galactic civilization. i.e. it has no new technology or other insight. The remains of the messenger, however, are another matter. It is unmistakably an ancestor or variant of the elder species. Perhaps we have cousins out there, or perhaps we were subject to genetic manipulation by a precursor race. Scientist Fugan is requesting permission to conduct more extensive research. Fugan has reconstructed the messenger species. It's feebler than ours, but has significantly improved cognitive abilities. There is some confusion about whether we are the source species, and the messenger the modified version, or whether the messenger was our ancestor. It is a little embarrassing to imagine that we might have been descended from such a weak species, but Fugan is firmly of that opinion. Indeed, he considers the loss of cognitive abilities a tragedy. So much so that Fugan has undergone a retroviral treatment in order to alter his own physiology to that of the messengers. He insists this will equip him much better to continue the project. It appears that Fugan has now recreated the genetic heritage of the messenger species. Without stopping to ask anyone's opinion, he also created a highly contagious retroviral agent. It stalks our worlds. Under its influence, our primary species falls into a coma and emerges the next day as the messenger species. This is causing, it is fair to say, some excitement. Observation Station, Lugganath. Our observation station on Lugganath reports the rise of an unusual minority religious artistic movement, the Coils of God. Primitive mechanical clocks are considered holy, but ritually destroyed after a year's operation. The worm and the serpent analogues of the planets are protected from harm. Time, the coil priests say, is a labyrinth. What was, will be. What will be, was, they intone in their prayers. We've convinced the native rulers that the Coils of God cult on Lugganath is a threat. The coil priests have been discouraged, imprisoned, or regrettably incinerated. Pre-FTL species have access to a deep well of hatred and suspicion, and there are times when that is very useful. The Coils of God cult on Lugganath has grown with unusual speed. It can be found in every city on the planet, and it is fostering a series of lengthy ceremonies conducted by citizens in every walk of life. The whole species has taken to them with unlikely enthusiasm. The rich adopt elaborate circular dances for their celebrations. The poor daub complex looping sigils on their door. Even playground games are chants about the circular nature of time. We hope that this is just primitives doing primitive things, and will continue to observe. Our anthropologists are fascinated by the complexity of the ceremonies. They hypothesize secret communication channels, steganographic prayer encodings, or algorithmic underpinnings to the rituals. In fact, they're returning preliminary evidence of this when their communications abruptly cease. In fact, all communication seems to have ceased, planet-wide. Reports from satellites and survey craft flyovers confirm there is no activity on the planet at all. No vehicles moving on the road, no emissions or thermal signatures in population centres, no signs of life at all. And here's the final report. The entire population of the planet, including the anthropology team, is absent, with all the business of a sudden but not violent exit. Meals have been left unfinished, pets unfed, and the occasional house aflame from an unattended stove. Gravitational anomalies were recorded at the assumed time of departure. In almost every street, the looped chalk sigils of the coils bear witness. Another world, Memeria. It appears that this was not the first elder settlement on this planet. A number of facilities and residences have been carefully mothballed and, with a little restoration, will serve our new colony well. But all records have been erased. Possibly this was a smuggler's port or a haven for political exiles. Our settlers were initially happy to make use of the buildings on Memeria. Their existence jump-started the colony. But now they're growing nervous. There are rumours that the buildings may still have occupants, or active security systems. Although no evidence of either has been found, some colonists insist, enigmatically, that there are shadows in the walls. Interesting news from Memeria, where we found those abandoned buildings. A census shows too many settlers. Records on a new colony are always unreliable, but as far as we can tell, they have authentic citizen IDs. and no one on the world has suggested there are any mysterious strangers. But the birth rate must have been extraordinarily high, or we have unlicensed migration, or something else. Somehow the population is higher than we might reasonably expect. Another update from Memoria, where we found those abandoned buildings. The number of colonists continues to increase, and we're now finding irregularities in the records. Family groups that shouldn't exist, birth dates that make no sense. There must be a secret migration from a lost colony, or else some particular sabotage by the colonists. There now appears to be an abrupt and total communication blackout from Memoria. We somehow had too many people there. Now it appears we have no one at all. The entire population has simply vanished overnight. Have they left the world? Gone into hiding? Engaged in planet-wide genocide? We have sent a science team to investigate. Our team reports that Memoria is indeed empty, not only of colonists, but any sign the colony was ever there. The buildings are gone, the satellites and orbital structures are gone. The atmosphere shows none of the footprints of a technological civilization. In the words of the team, it is as if the entire planet has been reset. They also report fluctuations in solar radiation that are characteristic of pre-supernova stars, a number of luminosity events on the surface where light somehow appears to be accumulated and released by prismatic functions of the atmosphere. This is valuable and peculiar data, but it does not clarify the fate of the colonists. Endgame. We have finally finished our research projects, and our understanding of Omega theory is now complete. The construction of the Omega alignment has been achieved. There is a consciousness outside time and beneath space. It is a labyrinth, a tangle of desire and desperation. Our remote ancestors knew it as the loop, the worm in waiting. We have met it out there, where the void is tormented by gravity. It appears to have taken a personal interest in us. There are mathematical proofs that it loves us. But love to the worm is not like love to anything that subsists in ordinary space. With all we have learned, we think we might be able to use the Omega alignment to open an access route, an entry point, for the worm to manifest itself in our home system. The worm is fond of beginnings, and this is ours. What consequences would that have? We have yet to find anyone who's prepared to commit an answer. Immortality, perhaps? Or apocalypse? But we would certainly learn a great deal. Perhaps the worm loves us, and perhaps we could love the worm. The project is complete, the accelerators are online. The power network of a dozen cities is diverted to wake the pseudo-singularity at the heart of the alignment. Space shudders like wind-whacked cloth. Our sun for a heart-stopping moment dims, and then brightens. A shadow coils in its heart. The worm is here. It unfolds like origami. Across the system, sensors shut down in abject disbelief as the incomprehensible data of its arrivals sleets through them. On the homeworld, our subjects scream and cower as they feel its attention turned upon them, and upon us. It presents a wordless question, or rather, we have become aware that this question was always what it was asking us, every time we encountered it. The worm loves us. It will always love us, and thus it always has. It winds around the hot heart of our home star. It winds around every infinitesimal loop of genetic information. It provokes a shuddering series of cataclysms in the planetary crust of our home, but when our star grows cold, that cataclysm will warm us. We understand so much more. We will always be what we were going to be, wound tight in our love of the worm. And that, my lords, ends the tale of the Eldar people and their love affair with this beast from the void. Obviously, given how we found their home system is naught but tomb worlds and a black hole, it seems this encounter did not go well for them. Fleet-wide comms have gone out stressing extreme caution regarding any signals emanating from black hole systems. Commanders and captains across the fleet have been told to report any oddities regarding space, time and gravity immediately. Let this be a lesson in trusting only humanity, my lords. We must not allow ourselves to be swayed by the promise of higher power. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this one. Show some love for the worm in the comments below. And a couple of quick announcements. Firstly, a huge thanks to Damn Dirty Cat, who very kindly produced the new artwork and logo for the channel. A link to their work is in the description. And secondly, I've launched a Discord and Patreon. Details are also in the description. Please drop by and say hello. As ever, if you want to hear another story, please click the video on screen now.